Stop and imagine this. You have a brother. You've known him your entire life, shared a childhood, survived poverty together, supported each other through difficult years. Then one day you have a conversation, just one conversation, and after that conversation you never speak again. Not for a year, not for 5 years, for 40 years, until one of you dies. That's exactly what happened between Napoleon Hill and his younger brother Vivian in 1925. They had a conversation that lasted less than an hour, and after that conversation, they never spoke again. Hill was 42, Vivian was 38, and for the next 40 years until Vivian's death in 1965, they lived as strangers. Same country, both alive, both aware of each other's existence, but zero contact, zero communication, complete severance. People who knew both brothers were shocked. Family begged them to reconcile. Friends tried to mediate, but Hill refused. Completely, finally, permanently. And here's what makes this story so powerful and so painful. Hill never regretted it, not once in 40 years. He said cutting off his brother was one of the hardest but most necessary decisions of his life. Not because Vivian was evil, not because of a betrayal or a crime, but because of something far more fundamental. A clash between family loyalty and personal truth so severe that Hill had to choose. And he chose truth over loyalty, permanently. If you stay with me for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened in that conversation in 1925. What Vivian said that Hill couldn't forgive, and why Hill, despite enormous pressure and guilt, refused to reconcile for 40 years. Because this story forces a question most people avoid their entire lives. When family loyalty conflicts with your deepest truth, which do you choose? Before we go deeper, comment right now, truth over loyalty. Because what Hill learned in 1925 might be the hardest lesson you ever face. Hit like, subscribe to the channel, and let's discover why Napoleon Hill never spoke to his brother again after 1925. Here's what led to that final conversation. Hill and Vivian grew up poor in Virginia. Their mother died when they were young. Their father was distant and difficult. The brothers had relied on each other for survival and support through childhood. Vivian looked up to Napoleon. Napoleon protected Vivian. They were close in the way brothers become when the world is hostile, and they only have each other. But as they grew into adulthood, they became very different people. Napoleon was ambitious, driven, obsessed with achievement and purpose. Vivian was practical, cautious, focused on stability and comfort. Napoleon took risks. Vivian avoided them. Napoleon pursued the Carnegie assignment with no payment and no guarantee. Vivian thought he was insane. Napoleon kept pushing forward despite failures. Vivian kept warning him to stop and get a real job. For years, they maintained the relationship despite these differences. Vivian would criticize Napoleon's choices. Napoleon would defend them. They'd argue, then they'd move on. Family loyalty held them together even as their values diverged. But by 1925, the tension had become unbearable. Napoleon was 42, still struggling financially, still working on the project Carnegie had given him 17 years earlier, still without a published book, still facing constant doubt from everyone around him. And Vivian had become one of the loudest voices telling Napoleon to give up. Stop wasting your life. This project will never work. Carnegie used you. You're 42 and broke. Accept reality and move on. Napoleon had heard this for years, from his first wife Florence, from friends, from family. But he'd always been able to dismiss it or tolerate it because he believed in the mission. Then in spring of 1925, Napoleon and Vivian met for what would become their final conversation. It started normally, catching up, small talk. Then Vivian said something that changed everything. He said, "Napoleon, I need to tell you something I've been holding back for years. I don't believe in what you're doing. I never have. I think this whole Success Principles project is a fantasy. I think Carnegie fed you lies to entertain himself. And I think you're wasting your life chasing something that doesn't exist. But worse than that, I think you know it. I think deep down, you know this project is pointless, but you're too proud to admit you've wasted 17 years. So you keep going, not because you believe in it, but because you're afraid to face the truth that you've failed. The words hit Napoleon like a physical blow, not because they were cruel, but because they attacked the core of his identity, his purpose, his mission, his entire reason for existing. Napoleon sat in silence for a long moment, then said, "Do you actually believe that? That I'm lying to myself?" Vivian responded, "Yes, I do. And I think everyone who loves you sees it, but is too kind to say it. I'm saying it because I'm your brother, and someone needs to stop you from wasting more years on a delusion." Napoleon asked one more question. "If you believe that, why have you stayed in relationship with me? Why not tell me this years ago?" Vivian's answer was honest but devastating. "Because I kept hoping you'd figure it out yourself, and I wouldn't have to hurt you by saying it. But you're not figuring it out. You're doubling down. So I'm telling you now, give up this project, accept reality, find a real job, live a normal life, before it's too late." Napoleon stood up, looked at his brother, and said words that would define the rest of both their lives. "Vivian, I understand what you're saying, and I understand you think you're helping me, but you're not. You're projecting your own fear onto my life. You're telling me to give up my purpose because you never had one. You're telling me to accept limitation because you've accepted yours. And I cannot be in relationship with someone who fundamentally doesn't believe in who I am and what I'm doing. Not because I need validation, but because that kind of doubt is poison. It seeps in, it contaminates. And I've spent 17 years building faith against constant opposition. I cannot let someone I love erode that faith from the inside. So I'm making a choice. My truth or our relationship. I choose my truth. And that means this is goodbye." Vivian was stunned. "You're cutting me off because I told you the truth?" Napoleon responded, "No, I'm cutting you off because your truth and my truth are incompatible. And I've finally learned that I cannot maintain relationships with people who believe I'm deluded, even if those people are family, especially if those people are family. Because family has the power to undermine you in ways strangers never can. So this is it. I wish you well, but we're done." Napoleon walked out, and that was the last conversation they ever had. 40 years of silence followed. Family members begged Napoleon to reconcile. Vivian sent letters apologizing, saying he'd been too harsh. But Napoleon never responded. He'd made his decision, and he held it for 4 decades. People asked Hill over the years why he wouldn't forgive his brother. Hill's answer was always the same. "Forgiveness doesn't require relationship. I forgave Vivian. I understand why he said what he said. He was trying to protect me from what he saw as inevitable failure. But forgiveness doesn't mean I have to expose myself to his doubt again. I cannot be in close relationship with someone who fundamentally doesn't believe in my purpose. That's not punishment, that's self-preservation." The Stoics would have understood Hill's decision completely. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the promontory against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." Hill was the promontory. Vivian's doubt was the waves. Hill stood firm, not by arguing, by removing himself from the waves entirely. Epictetus taught, "Keep company with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." Vivian's presence didn't call forth Hill's best. It called forth his doubt, his fear, his temptation to quit. So Hill removed that presence, not with anger, with clarity. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those who you can improve. The process is a mutual one. Men learn as they teach." Hill couldn't improve Vivian. Vivian couldn't improve Hill. The process wasn't mutual. so the relationship had to end. Now here's what most people misunderstand about Hill's decision. They think he cut off Vivian out of pride, or stubbornness, or inability to handle criticism. None of that is true. Hill faced criticism from hundreds of people for decades. He tolerated it, engaged with it, even learned from some of it. But Vivian's criticism was different. It wasn't about Hill's methods or strategies or tactics. It was about Hill's fundamental belief that his mission mattered, that the principles existed, that the work was worthwhile. Vivian was saying at the deepest level, your life's work is a delusion and you know it. That kind of fundamental disbelief cannot coexist with the faith required to achieve anything difficult. So Hill had to choose, keep the relationship and risk his faith, or end the relationship and protect his mission. He chose his mission, and he never regretted it. Why? Because 7 years after that conversation, in 1932, Hill completed the manuscript that would become The Law of Success. 5 years after that, in 1937, he published Think and Grow Rich. The project Vivian said was a delusion became one of the most influential books in history. Hill lived to see it succeed massively. Vivian lived to see he'd been completely wrong. But they never reconciled. Why not? After Hill's success proved the project was real, why didn't he reach out to Vivian and say, "You were wrong. I was right. Let's move forward"? Because Hill understood something most people never learn. Reconciliation isn't about proving you were right. It's about restoring relationship with someone you want in your life. And Hill didn't want Vivian in his life. Not out of bitterness, out of clarity. Vivian had revealed who he was. Someone who didn't believe in Hill's purpose. Success didn't change that fundamental reality. So the relationship stayed severed. When Vivian died in 1965, Hill attended the funeral, paid his respects, but felt no regret about the 40 years of separation. He told a close student later, "I love my brother, but I love my purpose more. And when I had to choose, I chose purpose. That decision saved my life's work. I will never regret it." So what does this mean for you? First, understand that some relationships, even family relationships, are incompatible with your purpose. Not because the people are bad, but because their fundamental beliefs about you and your mission create constant undermining energy that erodes your faith over time. If someone you love fundamentally doesn't believe in what you're building, that's not a relationship you can afford to maintain, not if you actually want to succeed. Second, forgiveness doesn't require ongoing relationship. You can forgive someone for doubting you and still refuse to maintain close contact with them. Forgiveness releases resentment. It doesn't obligate relationship. Hill forgave Vivian, but never resumed relationship. Both are possible simultaneously. Third, family loyalty is not the highest value. Truth is. Purpose is. If family loyalty requires you to betray your truth or abandon your purpose, family loyalty is asking too much. Hill chose truth over family loyalty. Society judged him. Family pressured him. He held firm. And his life proved he was right. Fourth, when someone reveals fundamental disbelief in your purpose, believe them. Don't try to convince them. Don't wait for them to change. Don't hope they'll eventually see your vision. They won't. They can't. They don't have your vision. And maintaining relationship while they actively undermine your faith is choosing slow death over quick severance. Choose quick severance. Fifth, you don't owe anyone access to your life just because they're family. Blood relation creates history. It doesn't create obligation to maintain relationship with people who fundamentally oppose who you are and what you're building. Hill spent 40 years living this principle. Society told him he was wrong. Family told him he was cold. He ignored them all because he knew something they didn't. His purpose was more important than comfort. His mission was more important than social approval. His truth was more important than family loyalty. That's not selfishness, that's clarity. That's the willingness to pay the price of an authentic life. And the price of an authentic life is often relationships with people who cannot accept your authenticity. Marcus Aurelius was Roman emperor, but maintained strict boundaries about who had access to him. Not everyone. Only people who shared his values and supported his purpose. Family members who didn't meet that standard didn't get access. Position didn't obligate relationship. Seneca was exiled by the emperor. His family wanted him to compromise his principles to return home. He refused. He chose exile and truth over reconciliation and falsehood. Family ties didn't change that calculation. Epictetus taught, if a person gave away your body to some passerby, you'd be furious. Yet you hand over your mind to anyone who comes along, so they may abuse you, leaving it disturbed and troubled. Have you no shame in that? Hill understood this teaching deeply. He'd been handing his mind over to Vivian's doubt for years. It disturbed him, troubled him, weakened him. So he stopped, not gradually, completely, and his mind became his own again. That's what the decision gave him, ownership of his own mental space. So here's what you need to ask yourself right now. Is there someone in your life, maybe family, who fundamentally doesn't believe in your purpose? Someone who, with love and concern, constantly undermines your faith. Someone whose presence, no matter how well-intentioned, makes you doubt yourself? If yes, you have Hill's choice. Keep the relationship and risk your purpose, or end the relationship and protect your mission. There's no middle ground. You cannot maintain close relationship with fundamental disbelief without it contaminating your faith. Hill tried for years. It nearly broke him. Then he made the hard choice, and his life proved it was the right choice. People will tell you family is everything, that blood is thicker than water, that you'll regret cutting off family. Hill's life proves otherwise. Family is important when family supports your truth. Family is toxic when family undermines your truth. The relationship matters less than what the relationship does to you. If it lifts you, keep it. If it drains you, end it. Even if it's family, especially if it's family. Because family has the power to destroy you in ways strangers never can. Hill protected himself from that destruction by choosing truth over loyalty, by choosing purpose over comfort, by choosing his mission over his brother. 40 years of separation, 0 regrets, because his life's work survived, and that mattered more than anything else. Comment truth over loyalty, like this video, so others learn that some relationships must end for your purpose to survive. Subscribe because we're teaching the hard choices that authentic living requires, and share this with someone struggling with a relationship that undermines their purpose. Napoleon Hill never spoke to his brother again after 1925. Family begged him to reconcile. He refused. His life proved he was right. Sometimes love means distance. Sometimes loyalty means severance. Sometimes family must be released for truth to thrive. Choose your truth. Let the judgment come. Let's go.